Hello guys and welcome to Wicked Pixels. This is our next build guide for Spire 2, this time focused on the Defect, one of the most interesting and fun characters in the game, possibly one of the most complex as well, with lots of really cool interesting builds. This particular build is going to be based around the Rocket Punch. We're going to be drawing some cards, playing lots of zero cost cards and comboing up those to have really long turns. Let's have a little look at some footage and we'll see how the build looks, and then we'll come back together and I'll talk you through the cards that you need to get this build off the ground. Alright. Alright, so here we are at the end screen for the run. This was the collection of cards that we ended up with. Now, this is quite a lot. Normally I say 20 cards quite a lot for a build, but this one works fine with lots of cards in because lots of them are zero cost and we've got lots of ways of pulling loads of cards out of our draw pile or out of our discard pile. Essentially we can cycle through like quite a big deck with this one, so don't worry too much about bloating this one. Just make sure we don't have too many copies of each card. So the first thing you're going to need to look out for this one is obviously Rocket Punch. This is the card that we're building around. This is the one that I kind of saw. I was looking to make a claw build saw a rocket punch, thought let's give this one a go and see how it works, and it works amazingly well. So I would say it's as good as claw. It's not quite as punchy, but it helps you create more of a cyclical deck sequence where you just keep drawing cards and you keep attacking, and then you keep drawing more cards, and then you essentially win the game that way. So rocket punch starts out as a 2-cost attack. It deals 13 damage, draw 1 card. Whenever you create status, reduce this card's cost to 0 until played. So this is the key part. We've got lots of 0-cost cards within the Defects card list that are going to create status effects that are essentially going to make this a 0-cost card that's going to hit pretty hard, but also draw us into some more cards as well. So when we upgrade that, it does upgrade a very slight amount of damage by 1. We don't really care about that. What we're interested in is, in fact, it goes up from drawing 1 card to 2 cards. So once you get this, make sure you upgrade it straight away. It's going to be really important. I would recommend you want at least 2 rocket punches for this build. I did get my second one fall in later in the game. It was fine with just 1, but I would recommend try and get a second one online if you can. So in terms of rocket punch, we are looking to make those status effects. So let's have a look at what cards we're going to use to do that. So we've got a set of 3 that I think work pretty well in most Defect decks. So we've got Boost Away as being one of our defensive cards. This is a 0-cost block card. It creates a dazed. Yeah, right, dazed is quite annoying. It clogs up your deck, but we've got ways of managing that. And it's not the worst status at all. The main thing for this is we need to be keeping our block up. 0-cost means we're always going to be able to play it, so you're always going to be able to get 9 block when this drops into your hand. So I think for me, really good card to upgrade quite quickly. 9 block for 0 is really good efficiency, and I would recommend picking this one up. A really important card to make this one tick and to make sure that you're able to draw into lengthy turns is Overclock. So this one is going to draw us some cards. Again, it's a small upgrade from 2 cards to 3, but I think that makes quite a big difference, so definitely get this one upgraded. And it adds a burn status into your discard, which is going to deal 2 damage to us. Again, don't worry too much about the statuses because we need them for Rocket Punch to go 0, and we also have other ways of managing that as a defect as well. And then finally, a really important card, possibly the most important of those 3 I've just mentioned, is Turbo. So Turbo is going to give us some extra energy, in fact free energy once upgraded, which is incredible. It means that you can effectively play 2 hands worth of cards within a single turn. It does add the worst of the status effects, which is Void. When you draw a Void, it's going to reduce our energy by 1, but in this deck we don't really mind too much because most of the cards we're going to play are 0 cost anyway. So with that in mind, we're going to be using Turbo to effectively keep our draw just continuing. So yeah, let's have a look at a couple of the others. So we've got a package of 3 0 cost cards which give us status effects to bring Rocket Punch online so that it becomes a 0 cost. We also have 2 other really important cards with this build that are essential. So the first one is Scrape. So Scrape is a 1 cost attack. It deals a good amount of damage at 10 when upgraded. It draws 5 cards. And it says discard all cards drawn this way that do not cost 0. So effectively, Scrape is our just go-to generic attack, but it's going to draw us a ton of cards, and most of those are going to be 0 cost that we get to play again for free. So a really good way to cycle through your deck. Effectively, look at this being a card draw synergy here. And then we also have, just working in synergy with Scrape, is going to be this one, All for One. So this is, I wouldn't say essential for the build, but it makes it run so much more effectively. It effectively doubles your turns by letting you play out your hand, and then you get to pull everything back at the end and play it all out again. So All for One, incredibly strong when you've set up your deck with lots of 0 cost cards, and it's got a decent amount of damage attached to it, not crazy damage for 2. When it's upgraded it goes to 14, but we don't really care too much. Don't worry about upgrading this one. What you really want it for is pulling all those 0 cost cards back at the end. So with those all working together, you've got your Rocket Punch, you've got lots of card draw with Boost, and we've got overclocking, sorry, Boost for the defense, overclock for your card draw. We've got Turbo to make sure we can play the cards that we're drawing. Those are essentially the kind of skeleton of the build, if you like. But we did have a couple of extra things in there just to kind of keep us going, mostly to show up our blocks as we're going through the runs. Bear in mind this is going to take a little bit of time to assemble, but I'll give you a few tips for things that you can look out for that will go really well. So starting out with the Defect, generally speaking, I'm always looking to upgrade Zap to 0, and I'm always looking to upgrade Dual Cast to 0. Early in the runs, when you've got a zero cost zap and a dual cast at 0, and you have both of these in your hand, it effectively means you can play a zap and then play a dual cast and hit for 16 damage straight away, which is a really good efficiency. And if you are drawing into these, it means you're always going to be able to play them. Having an extra lightning ball orb just sitting there doing a little bit of chip damage is absolutely fine. And then when you do hit that dual cast, it means you've got that extra burst as well. Now the good thing about dual cast, and the reason why I would probably keep it in the deck just rather than get rid of it completely, is because it negates any issues that you have when you attack using attack skills. So for example, if you have an enemy that has fawns, or does 3 damage on hit, things like that, or maybe shields itself, thinking about the serpent boss in the first area, when you attack it generates block, that kind of circumvents. So if you have let's say one of them serpents on 10 health and you dual cast an orb, that orb can hit for 16, and if you're lucky it attacks that mob and it kills it without any block being applied, or in the case of fawns, without you taking any damage. So essentially dual casting an orb is really useful just to circumvent those things, so I do tend to keep them in, but you could remove them if you want to make this super efficient. Just because I kept those in, I did add a hotfix. I would recommend you upgrade this if you are going for like an orb build, but in our case it wasn't that important. It was just helping to have a little bit of extra burst on those turns where we did end up doing a zap and a dual cast as well. We could quite easily remove these 3 cards and it wouldn't make too much of a difference to our build. We also have bulk up, which wasn't essential but ended up being useful again just to help with our defensive strategies. It just obviously quite a high 2 cost, but given that we've got a deck that can cycle through lots of 0 cost cards and we don't need loads of energy to make it run, this was okay to play on the first or second turn. It just meant that all our attacks were hitting a little bit harder and our defenses were just that little bit stronger. We added that second rocket punch in. We didn't quite manage to get that upgraded, but we could have done with doing so. There's another really good card here, which is FTL. This works really good with any 0 cost card build, and this will generally be the first card you play in any hand. It's going to give you an extra turn, an extra draw, if you've played fewer than 3 cards on your turn, and when you upgrade it's fewer than 4 cards. We don't care about the damage, it's just a small amount of damage, but it's that extra card draw if you get this early on. So that's a decent one, not essential, but it works well if you have 1 copy of that in your deck. We also added this one, which I think is a bit of a sleeper, amazing S tier card. So I would probably look, if I find this on my runs, I'm probably going to pick this up for any build. So it's not the best block card in the world. It's upgraded to 7 from 6 to 7. It's not great efficiency, but the fact it transforms all status cards in your hand into fuel being these here. So gain 1 energy, draw 2. This can turn any bad hand into an amazing hand by giving you these fuel cards. And when I'm thinking about certain bosses in the runs, like the Entomancer, which is towards the end of the 2nd floor, that's the B guy. So when you attack him, he gives you status effects, and you've got a compact in your hand. You draw loads of status effects with compact, and you turn all those into fuel. So fuel is just going to help you turn that terrible hand where you're going to take loads of damage into a really successful hand when you're going to do tons of damage to the boss and you're going to block as well. So compact for me, fantastic card, and one of the reasons why we don't really mind too much about making status effects in our hand. Now there is another card that we've not gotten in this end build, but I'll show you that in a second. Finally, we did also pick up Reboot. So Reboot is just a general all-round amazing card. It's going to replace itself, so don't worry about adding to your deck pile. It's a 0 cost, so you don't have to worry about the price to pay, and all it's going to do is if we have a bad hand, it's going to help us basically redraw. Now in this case, because we're playing lots of 0 cost cards and we're not using too much energy, we're just going to play out a hand. We're going to leave Reboot sat there, and as soon as we've finished all of our sort of cards and synergy, once we're out of cards, we're just going to hit this and we're going to redraw 6 more, and hopefully we'll be able to go again. So just a really solid card, and I would recommend picking this up for most builds. One final little bit of extra oomph we've added to the deck is just these 2 here. Neither are essential, but both are quite useful. So if you pick up a beam cell, that's going to apply vulnerable to enemies, which is just going to make them go down that much quicker, and go for the eyes is going to add weak. Now go for the eyes, being upgraded gives them 2 weak, that's going to persist over 2 turns, so it will normally be the case that you can just keep weak on an enemy. I'd say this one's slightly stronger for this particular build, but both good cards, and I think one copy of each of those is going to be really useful. So as you've seen in the video, we can draw a ton of cards, so we're probably going to get to play most, if not all of these in a single turn. That means we've got vulnerable on the boss, we've got weakness on the boss, we're drawing into cards, we've got energy from turbo, we've got extra block from boost, and then we're going to hopefully turn all those status effects with compact into new draws and things like that. So yeah, we'll get rid of all our defends and all our strikes for this one. One card that I do say, generally speaking, is pretty good is Charge Battery, and I added this very early before I'd established the actual build. Charge Battery is a solid, efficient card for 12 block for 1 is awesome when you upgrade it, but it's the fact it gives you an extra energy. So when you're early and you run in the first area in particular and you've got some powers that you're trying to get off, this is a really good one to play out. Just give you that block, but then it also means next turn you've got a good chance of being able to play everything that you need to play in that one turn. So not essential, but I would recommend picking it up. And I did add, I think I added Nimble to this one as well, just to make it a little bit more powerful. Alright, so just a couple of extra cards that you might want to keep an eye out for, or at least something that I feel like I need to talk about given it's a 0 cost card build. So Claw is an alternative damage dealing card. Now, I would say this would work in our build because it's 0 cost, but this is going to be much more efficient in a slightly different build where we just focus on adding claws, retrieving the claws and playing them as many times as we can. This works really well in tandem with a power called Feral, which is going to mean the first time you play a 0 cost attack you return it to your hand, so you get to play Claw twice, which is going to boost the damage on that and all the other claws we've got. So there is a Feral build out there, we're going to work on that a bit later. For me, I didn't feel like it was going to be efficient enough to put in this deck, so I left this one out. One thing that I could always recommend as well, Momentum Strike is a reasonably decent attack. It's not the most efficient, does a good amount of damage. The first time you use it, it's going to cost 1 energy, and then after that it's going to cost 0. So it will slot into a 0 cost deck, but isn't quite as good as the other cards that we've got, which all serve a particular purpose. Rocket Punch does more damage, it's going to cost us 0 to pretty much to start with, it's going to draw us cards. So I'd much rather leave this out and get another Rocket Punch in the deck instead. Now on top of that, we do have Boot Sequence, which is a really good 0 cost card, and this is one that I would have added if I'd seen it on the run. It's just a really good useful useful card. It's going to mean at the start of the game when the boss sometimes, and some enemies do this, they have a really big chunky attack ready on the very first round just to disrupt your kind of your engine getting going. So having Boot Sequence sat there just means you've got the option of adding a nice chunk of block to get through that first round while you try and play your powers off. Now if it doesn't happen, if it doesn't happen like that because you don't need it for the first round, this is going to then fall into your draw pile, and because of the cards we've got in our deck, we're going to be able to pull this back in probably on the second round as well if we need it, just because we can use a scrape and then maybe an all-in-one, all for one, and then this will get pulled back into our hands and away we go with added extra blocks. So this one, really good card, and I would add maybe 1, even 2 of these because it is exhaustible. You can get away with adding multiples as well. So really solid card that you should look out for. Now finally, for me, this is the one card that I would say is absolutely amazing to have in this deck, and unfortunately I didn't get it in the deck, but I did get it from a potion in the last boss, as you saw in the video. So Flat Cannon is an incredible card. It's 2 cost, it does 8 or 11 damage, and it's going to essentially use all your status cards that are in your deck, not just the ones in your hand, but all the ones that are in your deck, to hit repeatedly. So if we've got those cards in our deck that are going to generate status effects, we've got Burn, we've got Daze, and we've got Void coming from some of our cards, and we've got status effects coming from certain bosses as well, quite a few of them do that, then this is going to get rid of all of those. It's going to make your hands much better, and it's going to absolutely slap for damage as well. So this one, just because it's 2 cost, it is quite tricky to slot into a lot of builds, but this one being a 0 cost card build means we've often got enough energy to spare to be able to use Flat Cannon. In fact, it works really well with Turbo, because Turbo is going to give us some energy, and it's going to create a void, which makes this hit even harder. So any turn we've got a Turbo and a Flat Cannon, we can essentially play both cards out for free. We get 3 extra energy, which are going to help pay for Flat Cannon, and that void that we've just generated is going to help to increase the damage. We're not going to see the negative impact of that at all. So absolutely S tier card if you can find Flat Cannon, and probably for most builds as a defect, I would recommend you pick this one up. Alright guys, there we have it for the build guide. I hope you had fun watching this one. I definitely had fun making it. Defect is an incredible class and there's loads of different ways to go with that one. So stay tuned for more builds coming up. If you did find this useful, please do drop us a like and subscribe to support the channel, and let me know in the comments what builds you'd like to see for what characters moving forward. Alright, thanks for watching guys, and stay tuned for more on the way.